Welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Osborn. And on this podcast, we interview successful business owners for them to share atomic, impactful lessons that they've learned throughout the course of their business and share them with us that we can learn from them as well. As always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everybody hates. We use this method to book 26 qualified leads and sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach, or endless social media posting. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn. The link to that will be in the show notes below. But on today's show, our special guest is Peter Freeth. He's the owner of Genius, where he provides consultancy, coaching, and publishing. So, Peter, thanks so much for being on the show. And I want to start off by asking you a question that I always love to start off asking, which is this. If you somehow were able to go back and start again in your business, but knowing what you know now, what would you do differently in the first 12 months?
Thanks, Jason. I think the obvious thing, and I'm sure a lot of people say this, is those first 12 months would have come about 10 years earlier. Because I worked in the corporate, well, in the telecoms industry. I was a service engineer. I designed and built things that today you would call the internet. And I was in that industry through the birth of mobile and the internet. Two technologies have transformed the way that we live and work. But I was really getting very dissatisfied just with the nature of the corporate world and politics and so on. And I knew that starting my own business was inevitable. And I think I waited probably 10 years longer than I could have done. So I think I did what probably most people do, which is I mistook money for security. And I thought it was having money in the bank or income. And in the end, I did it when I took a voluntary redundancy package. I thought that was what gave security. And what I actually found was I didn't need that at all. What actually gives you security is your own skills and ability to go out and talk to people and be good at what you do and win business. So I think that's the obvious thing I would do differently. Just do it sooner.
Yeah. You said something really powerful there as well. Is the true freedom is what we have within ourselves to create the things that we want. That's a really powerful statement that I think a lot of people don't really truly understand. And it's a game changer when we really understand that. It's really powerful. Yeah.
I think as well, because over the coming up on 25 years that I've had my own business, and there have been really good times and there have been bad times. And the bad times have never been caused by business or the economy. The bad times were caused by stuff that was going on in my personal life that was distracting and took me away from all of that. And, so I had some rough times there. But I think the main thing that I've learned, I would say, through all of that is the ability to restart, because things are not just going to start as you want them to, and you're not going to be on this like a stock market. It's not going to keep on growing and growing and growing forever. There's going to be ups and downs. And one of the things I learned when I first started work in 1985 was my first 2 weeks in work were in a nice warm office, watching people do admin and boring stuff, learning how the company worked. And then the next 2 weeks were in this horrible factory installing a telephone system, or being part of a team to do that. And then the next 2 weeks were in a nice cozy warm factory with a coffee machine again. And so what I learned was it doesn't matter how bad things are at the moment, just wait 2 weeks. But also, if you think things are really good, just wait 2 weeks. So there's that natural cycle. There's that natural cycle in the world around us. And being able to respond and react to that is far more important than having some amazing product or service that you think is going to survive forever, that people are going to want forever. And when you see people going on TV shows like Shark Tank and Dragon's Den and so on, saying, everybody in the world will want this product. Maybe, but the reality is not everybody will buy it. Whatever we're doing, it's valuable to some people, but people always have a choice about what to do with their money or their time. And I think being mindful of that is important. And so for me, that that ability to restart. It doesn't matter what happens or how bad things get. I know not how to run my business, but I know how I started it. And I think this is something that's missing a lot from things like enterprise education in schools and colleges and universities, MBAs, things like that. It's all how to own and operate and run a business, but not how to start it from scratch. Because the reality is, you talk to any entrepreneur, and the thing that they're good at is restarting when things don't work out as they planned.
Yeah, yeah, it's very true. It's very true. It's a lot of really great bits of wisdom in there as well. Just really practical. I think sovereign aspects on creating your kind of own internal peace around stuff, like think as you said, when things are going really well, wait, that's not a doom and gloom thing. It's just like, look, it's cyclical. Things change, but likewise, when things are going down, it'll come back up again as well. And if you can maintain that balance, you're not riding the highs and low emotionally the whole time, which makes it even worse. So yeah, I
Well,
love
if
that.
you look at the system that we're all part of, which is the environment and the weather, wherever we are in the world, I mean, unless you're right on the equator, we've got seasons. And so
Yeah,
where we are in the world, we get very definitely get seasons. And if you go back, thousands of years, people didn't get complacent during the summer. They used the summer to build up that stock, and they developed technologies for preserving food through the autumn. And then
yeah,
midwinter they celebrated. At what would seem like the lowest point of the winter, they celebrated because now it's the turning point, and now they're looking forward to spring returning.
yeah,
If you've got these ancient festivals all around the world that mark things like the high point of summer, the low point of winter in terms of day length and temperature and so on. But people celebrated that because they knew that the summer was coming back. So I think
yeah,
you're absolutely right. It's not pessimism. It's just an acceptance of the bigger cycle that we're all part of,
yeah,
and learning how to ride that really.
yeah, yeah. I love that. Well, as you've grown your business and scaled in what you've done, what's the hardest part of scaling without becoming salesy or spammy in your sales process?
I think the hardest part of scaling is taking yourself out of the business, because
Hmm.
what I've seen so many times, what businesses that I've worked with that just keep on bumping up against this glass ceiling. They grow to a certain point, they retreat again, and so on. And coming back to what I said earlier about the skills necessary to start a business are not perhaps the same skills as those involved in running or scaling a business. So I think believing that you can do everything yourself is a barrier. Believing that, well, I started this business, so I'm the best person. I know what it takes. I know how to grow it. That yeah, that's something I hear a lot. And what I've seen is the business owners become the barrier. And I think
Hmm.
it's recognizing that if you look at businesses that have really scaled, to a global scale, what they all have in common, one of the things is that the owner got out of the way.
Yeah.
And they may have done that through an IPO where a board and an executive team is forced on them. They may have done that through merger, partnership, whatever. But whatever it is, get other people involved. And I think a lot of people get other people involved very early on in the business when they're starting up because they think they can't do it themselves. And actually, when you're starting up, you can only do it yourself because it's your
Hmm.
vision. And I've seen other people, and it's happened to me, get into partnerships because actually the other person sees you as far more beneficial to them than what you get in return, because
Yeah.
they see the skills that you have, whether it's technology, marketing, sales, whatever, and they want to make use of that. Of course, who wouldn't? But it's got to be a fair and equal exchange, and I think
Mm.
any kind of partnership arrangement you get into has to be genuinely a fair and equal exchange, and really examine closely if you're getting into something like that from an emotional point of view. Be really honest with yourself. Are you doing that because you're afraid of doing it alone?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but then when you get to a certain point of scale, you need other people involved, not just to take on the workload, but to bring new ideas, to bring that bigger perspective or that different perspective.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good insight for it. That's just really good. Um, Talking about that bit of scaling, getting yourself out of the way, all of those sorts of things that you're growing. One of the things that I've seen to be challenging in that aspect is how do you maintain the relationships with your prospects, with your clients, but ideally your prospects, because as you step away from the initial selling bit, because you start a business, you're the one just grafting all the time. Um, what's the one thing that you've changed in how you build relationships that's made the whole lead generation sales process feel easier for you?
Well, I think at different scales, people are buying from you for different reasons. There's a phrase that I've often used. I originally heard it from recruiters, but I think it applies to anybody running any kind of service business, which is you either do it for 6 months or you do it forever. Because in 6 months, you've sold to all your friends. So
Yeah.
the reason people are buying from you, whether you've started up some, cleaning products franchise or, a coaching business or a recruitment business, immediately you sell to everybody you know and they buy from you because they know you. But in
Mm,
order to scale beyond that, you've got to sell to people who don't know you. And then it's about establishing credibility in some other way. And I notice you've got books on your shelf behind you. And I publish books, and as a publisher, my speciality is um, is 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 turning into a physical product the intellectual property and the expertise of expert authors. And the book is still a really important way of making that intellectual property, that expertise tangible, because people will buy the book as the first entry point into having a longer conversation with you. And that's not to say books are the only way to do that, but essentially you've got to take that expertise, that reputation, that credibility out of you, and you've got to put it into something else. And you could call that a brand. If you look at a brand like Apple, for example, who've done a great job of embodying a set of personal principles in branding, consistency, design consistency, and so on. So that would be an extreme example. But if you're able again to get yourself out of the way in your own business and start to think about, well, what are the reasons? People are not buying from you because they like you, because they like lots of people. People are not
mm,
buying for you because they feel sorry for you, because you're not a charity. People are not
yeah.
buying from you because you're their friends, because just because you sit and make small talk in a sales meeting doesn't make them your friend. And I
Yeah.
think if you can identify what value people are anticipating when they buy from you, and you can take that value and you can embody it in something, in your product, in a way in which you deliver your service, a format or a structure for your service that you can then get other people to do. People trust. If you think of big service brands like Dino Rod or I don't know, delivery courier companies, those sorts of things, they've taken those elements of trust and quality of workmanship or quality of service and so on, and they've embodied them in something. It could be a business process, could be that
Yeah.
everybody that you buy this service from in this franchise, they do it the same way. They do it to the same standard and so on. So I think about how you embody what it is that people are really buying from you, because it isn't you, and it isn't your personality, and it isn't your smile, and it isn't all of that personal stuff. It can't be, because that isn't scalable.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, you're such great wisdom. That's why I love doing these podcasts, Peters. It's everyone's got a little bit different angle or take on stuff, and it's so much we can learn from. Well, if you look over the next, let's say 2 to 3 years of your business, what are your goals? What would you like to achieve?
I'm trying to slow down, actually,
Okay.
which I think is a really, really important thing to do, because I think, and especially for young entrepreneurs and the pressure of social media, it's all about, I just read this thing yesterday that people in like software companies are working 9 hours a day, 6 hours a week, no, 12 hours a day, I think. Yeah, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days. For what? For a job? Are you crazy? And
Mm,
everybody will have read or heard this thing that, you know, people when they were dying were asked their biggest regrets, and number one was that they worked too much and didn't spend enough time doing the thing they loved. And, you know, there's so much pressure on people, I think, especially as I say, young entrepreneurs, you know, to be an empire builder, to, you know, to, and those comparisons are fake, they're false. Nothing that you see on social media is real because it's all curated by the person who's posting it. They're only showing you what they want to show you. So I think that artificial pressure, you know, that I think we've all felt at times, it is very, very important again to be aware of. So I think thinking about those bigger cycles, you know, I've had a really busy couple of years, back end of last year, particularly far too busy. And I know when I get too busy because other things in my life kind of fall off the edge. My office
Mm.
gets very untidy. I lose contact with friends and become very sort of introspective. And I'm aware of that. And so for me, it's important to step back and make a bit of space to allow the dust to settle, to allow things to sort of settle out. And I think this, people put themselves under so much pressure to start doing things. And what we almost never think about is the importance of stopping doing things.
Mm. Yeah.
We focus on starting a business. We don't focus so much on what am I going to do when I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I experienced this a few years back when I was mainly doing coaching and corporate leadership development, and I became very dissatisfied with the changes I was seeing in the industry post-COVID and very unhappy in what I was doing. And I remembered that something that I'd said when I started my business, and I'd said to countless people over the years, which is I said that I'm going to do this for as long as I enjoy it. And if I stop enjoying it, I'll do something else. And I realized that I'd stopped enjoying it. And so I've got to, you know, follow my own advice and do something else,
Yeah.
which I did about 4 years ago now. And so I think that's very important that we think how we're going to stop things, not just keep on piling more onto our plates.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's great goals. You know, some people want to ramp up, other people are like, let's slow down, and we're all on our own journey. So that's amazing. Well, even though you're wanting to slow down over the next few years, what's the best place for people to contact you if they're wanting to learn more information about you or get in touch?
Well, looking me up on LinkedIn is fairly easy because I've got a fairly unique name. There's only one other Peter Freeth that I'm aware of, and he's a 80-something-year-old artist, so that's not me.
Okay.
So I'm the only Peter Freeth as far as I know on LinkedIn, but you'll see me as a, you know, coach, publisher, photographer, all sorts of things that you'll see and recognize me. My website is genius.coach, simple as that. So yeah, that would probably be the easiest ways.
Amazing. Well, I definitely recommend everyone check out Peter either on LinkedIn or the website he just gave there as well. So, Peter, thanks so much for being on the show and just sharing your atomic lessons that you've learned throughout the course of your business. Really great having you on here for sure. And as a reminder for everyone listening, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everybody hates. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn. The link to that will be in the show notes below. And until next episode, stay inspired.